Hello, everyone. Welcome to our event, The Power and Potential of Peers. My name is Joe. I'm going to be your host for today. And we're just going to give it a minute for people to come along and join the session. And we'll start in a couple of moments. Thank you. Great. So I see that we've got people saying hello in the chat. Hello to everyone that's in the chat. It's lovely to have people interacting already. So I think we're ready to start. Again, welcome to everyone to Camden Islington's Peer Involvement Network, otherwise known as PIN, presenting the power and potential of peers. So, my name is Joe Atiasi, and I'm the Peer Mentor Development Coordinator for Flick. And that's part of the charity SHP Single Homeless Project. We're here today to present a webinar to you, exploring all the different aspects of peer working. From today, you'll get hopefully a really good understanding of the values of peer work. You'll understand about the peer involvement network and get a really good insight into the community of peer working and peer volunteering in Camden and Islington. I will say that today, at the end of the session, towards the end, there will be a chance to ask questions to a panel of peer workers and coordinators. So if you do have a question, you can just pop it into the Q&A box at the bottom, and you can also vote up and down different questions. So if you see a question that you like, you can vote it up, and that question will come to the top and will be the first questions that we asked the panel today. So we're going to say a little bit about peer working and volunteering in Camden. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Peer Involvement Network. We've got a film that we created for you called PINspiring. We're going to present to you the values of the Peer Involvement Network. And we've got another a short film, a conversation, that's a spotlight on peer working in the VAWG sector. Again, we've got our panel, so don't forget to pop your questions in to the Q&A box and vote them up. And we're going to be looking at the next steps of the Peer Involvement Network. And then to close, we've got a wonderful poem from our peer poet. So just to start off, I'm going to just say a little bit about the Peer Involvement Network. So the Peer Involvement Network is basically a community of peers, people with lived experiences, and coordinators, so services and organisations in Camden and Islington, coming together to support each other and to work together. So the core idea of the Peer Involvement Network is that we're recognising that previous users of health and social care services are experts in their own experience, And we regard their involvement in the delivery of services as key to creating like really great high quality services. So we're really about, you know, holding the voices, the knowledge and expertise of those with lived experience within the peer involvement network. So a few aims of the peer involvement network are really to raise the profile of peer support within health and social care within Camden Islington and wider, to create opportunities for sharing resources and knowledge between statutory and non-statutory organisations, all really working together in that community, to draw on the knowledge and expertise of those people with lived experiences to build things like good practice guides and trainings. We also really want to kind of map out all the different services that have peer support as part of their offer in Camden Islington. Yeah, and that's it really. We've got two main spaces. One is the inspiration group, where it's a peer-only space, so people come together and inspire each other and share ideas, and we can like work them a little bit. And any ideas that we have, any actions, we pass over to the action group, who kind of take things forward. And so part of what we do today of raising that profile is events just like this. So that's a little snapshot for you about the peer involvement network, otherwise known as PIN. But you may be wondering, what is peer working and volunteering, and maybe what are some of the services in Camden Islington? So I'm going to hand over to our dear colleague Serdik, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about that. Over to you, Serdik.
Thanks, Joe, and welcome everybody. I feel really pleased to have an opportunity to tell you a little bit about peer working as I understand it locally and more generally. I'm Serdik Hall. I work with Camden Islington Foundation Trust. I'm a nurse consultant for primary care, and over the last 4 or 5 years I've been involved in developing the peer workforce within our mental health trust, but also managing a peer coaching team. So what is peer support? And when I talk about peer working, peer support, I'm talking about both paid and unpaid roles in a variety of contexts. And there've already been some mentioned, but I'll go into a bit more detail. So peer support occurs when people provide knowledge, experience, emotional, social, or practical help. But what's really distinct about peer support is, and different from other types of support, is that the source of support is a peer, a person who is similar in fundamental ways to the recipient of the support. And there is a relationship of more equality between the two. It's a naturally occurring phenomenon between like-minded people when they come together. And as a nurse who's been working for about 30 plus years, I've seen again and again the importance of conversations and relationships with friends who are going through mental health problems together. Mental distress can really overwhelm and dominate a person's life, and peer support can help a person build a life that is bigger than any illness experience. Within the mental health landscape, peer support's been around for quite a long time. AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, was an area, and substance misuse services were a leader in developing peer support, and also the LGBTQI community also led with peer work around support for people who are HIV positive. And within mental health, informal peer support is really the bedrock of activism and recovery for many. And formal peer support has been around for at least 20 years, probably more. So let's break it down a little bit. So formal peer support comes in many forms, including peer mentors, peer coaches, peer advocates, peer buddies, peer workers, peer volunteers. It comes in one-to-one and group forms, and it happens in a massive amount of contexts, including inpatient wards, in people's homes, community centres, health centres, and within specialist teams as well. In Camden and Islington, we have many varieties connecting people to community services and formal mental health services. We've got peer workers delivering services to people who are struggling with hoarding, people with long-term physical healthcare conditions, mental health vulnerabilities. We have lots of BAME community groups, and we have also services for people in crisis. And we're really expecting a lot of growth in relation to housing and social services as well. and would love to see more in terms of working with people who are homeless and perhaps the refugee population as well. And the need for some form of peer support tends to spring up where people are experiencing isolation and discrimination. And I think that's because it's often strongly informed by those peer workers who become peer workers wanting to prove on the experience that they'd had themselves. So what do peer workers actually do? There's a really practical element. Often peer workers are alongside their clients, helping them to tackle very practical issues. It might be filling out a form or attending an appointment. It might be going through paperwork at home. It might be writing a letter. And these practical tasks are often where mental health issues are most keenly felt, and often where people can feel really overwhelmed and there's very little support necessarily available. And these practical actions can assist with building a sense of momentum, and peer workers come with a real sense of we can do this together and we can overcome this together. But it's not just about practical tasks. I've often heard it said that it isn't the task, it's the way the task gets done that is different between peer support work and other forms of support. And it's worth saying also that there's a real challenge if you're providing a service as a peer worker as well, in terms of this two-directional part of it as well. There's a two-way street. If I'm offering you a service, it can really lapse into a one-directional approach. And my experience of peer workers is that they really resist this, and they tend to provide a service that is deeply personal and two-way. So even with this challenge of delivery, peer workers bring themselves and their vulnerabilities into their helping relationships. They do this by skillfully listening and sharing and responding authentically to the realities of their clients. And they give real primacy to a person's priorities and validate their importance. Peer workers also provide a bridge. They offer an example into self-care, into recovery, and into growth. They offer a route into communities. They help to provide supported passage into new experiences, and just as importantly, self-compassion. They offer access to services, and they offer services new perspectives. They help to make services more accessible, and they do this by challenging services and the assumptions that we make and the biases that we have within us. And peer workers also at times provide strong advocacy. At times this can be a very formal process, but also at times it can be the type of advocacy that helps to have their questions heard by another, to challenge bureaucracies and to bear witness to the struggles and the barriers, and to help push back against the isolation of some of these struggles, and to learn the skills so that they can have success in their efforts. Peer workers also provide listening, really unmuddied by professional assumptions. They honor people's trauma by listening fully, and peer workers allow themselves to be inspired, moved, and changed by their relationships with their peers. And not only that, but they're also willing to name that growth as well. The potential of peer working lies in its incredible energy to move with compassion and skill into the spaces where people feel most alienated and isolated and hopeless. And not only move into these spaces, but transform these spaces into skilled, hopeful, and energized communities. So I thank the peer workers, particularly at this event, and today will be a chance to really honor your efforts as you've honored others. So have a good day all.
Thank you very much, Serdik, for a really insightful overview of peer working and volunteering. Great. Good job. Cool. So we at PIN really wanted to raise the voices of our peers and allies to peer working. And we really wanted to have a tool that we can use to express the ins and outs of being a peer, as well as express the value of peer working and volunteering, and really show how it can change lives. So we came together and we created a film. And without further ado, I'm really pleased to introduce the world premiere of our Peer Involvement Network short film, PINspiring Peer Stories in Camden and Islington. Hi everyone, welcome to the Peer Involvement Network's film about peer working and peer volunteering. My name is Joe Atiasi and I'm the Peer Mental Development Coordinator for Flick. In this film, we're going to be getting to the essence of what peer working and peer volunteering is. We're going to understand the value of peer working, and we're going to understand why peer working and peer volunteering should be embedded in the services in Camden Islington.
Peer support is a kind of naturally occurring phenomenon that comes out of people with lived experience supporting each other and having a special ability to support each other because they've been through some of the similar experiences.
Peer working, I think, came about 15 years ago in mental health. It was initially started in education. It's kind of self-explanatory. It's peers helping each other. In mental health, we are people with lived experience of mental health difficulties who navigated through the system, through the NHS services, and now we received a coaching training and peer support worker training from the Trust and Health Education England, and we try to support our peers, current service users.
We support clients to appointments, we're there to talk to, we go through like coping methods, like being triggered off and things, and it's really about more of the relationship rather than the work, if that makes sense.
I remember when I first got my peer mentor, we just clicked like that, and it was basically because we understood each other. I think that's vital when you have somebody that sort of wore the t-shirt and stuff. It's really strange because I remember him saying I should have been his peer mentor because we were fit to talk obviously about each other's problems, and I found that amazing.
At Talk for Help, we kind of talk about no hierarchy of kind of knowledge and skills. So for us, everyone is a peer. Everyone working at Talk for Help is a peer. So it's kind of like, rather than being on in kind of a session with someone who might be professional in a sense, it might be like a psychologist, therapist, anything like that, or whatever it might be.
I had this thing that I have to give something back for all of these people who are helping me, and yeah, so peer coach, peer working is giving something back and letting people know that they're not alone, that people have gone through it and have moved on from it. So it's trying to be an inspiration to them, that to say, look, this is where I was, this is where I am. I'm not saying that you have to follow that same trajectory. It's, you take it at your own pace. It's not going to be all plain sailing. We'll have 30 steps forward, 10 steps back, or whatever. But it's been able to sort of like explain that to people, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Being a peer mentor, it gave me confidence, it made me be able to believe in myself, it gave me experience, it gave me experience working with people, it gave me experience, some practical experience, things like budgeting and using IT computers to do like the promoting.
The Peer Involvement Network is an organisation for anybody who is working in a peer role, or organisations that are supporting peer workers in Camden and Islington, to get together as a network and share good practice, to provide support, to work at amplifying the voice of peer workers more generally. So looking for commonalities, looking for differences, and learning from each other. It's really just trying to bring the expertise of peer workers to the front so that we can really use it well.
I think it would just help. It helps to kind of connect with someone if you've got like a shared experience. Normally, if they come into a service and they see a professional, there's not that connection. There's that kind of dynamic of where it's a professional and a client.
For them to have someone they can relate to. As a young person, I know I would open up to someone I can trust and relate to. I'll open up to someone who maybe shared the same experiences as me in life. And that ties in with our mentors as well. So we encourage our mentor, if they can, when they can, to share their life experiences to help them support their peers. Their peers would feel more like they can open up with their mentors, and they can trust each other, they can build bonds. So that's why sharing life experiences is really important and key.
It's about understanding other people in the most visceral, deep way. Like, you know what I mean? It's about experiencing the same suffering in a way. It's not like you can learn this thing like, I mean, you can study this kind of thing.
It gives you a more in-depth understanding of what they're going through and actually really helps build the rapport with clients. It's not, you know, I have this term of like ticking boxes and like workers go in there and like you need to meet this category and that category, whereas when you've kind of experienced it, you know it's not that straightforward and you know there's challenges. So it really helps kind of you be able to support properly, like in a better way, more trauma-informed as well.
Although mental health issues are sort of like gaining the spotlight with Prince Harry and Prince William sort of like being the main flag bearers, which is brilliant, there is still a stigma to it. And peer coaching takes that sting out of the tail. It's someone that people can talk openly to, can sort of like, I don't know, sort of like go, oh, someone understands. Yeah, and it's non-clinical. We're not prejudging people. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just helping people and knowing just the silly things that are receiving 2 brown envelopes from the DWP could throw them over the edge, and that they bring that into you and you open it. And the fact that you can open it for them takes a lot of pressure off of them. So yeah, that's what it means to me. It's taking the sting out of the tail of the stigma.
There's a lot of my clients, well, obviously majority of them, that have been through the criminal justice system, and when I explain to them a bit about my life, because sometimes we have clients that come in and we're going through an assessment and they're very closed. They don't really want to, another organisation here again. And I give them a little briefing about my life and what I've been through, and you see them relax. And you see that hope as the time goes by that, well, okay, then if you've been through what you've been through, then it can happen to me as well. So, yeah.
Being a peer mentor for mentees in the community is a great thing to do. You know, you're helping people, you are discovering new things about yourself, you are welcoming them into your life and hopefully giving them some emotional support that they can use in their life. Yeah, so I think it's a great thing to do, really good.
They allowed me to go ahead with all the training whilst in treatment, because I've tried to do that over the years. The difference is that they've allowed that to happen after getting to know me, which shows that they could see what I've got to offer. There's no point 30 years on and off in a service, any service, all over my homeless years, if they don't give you that opportunity to grow. Otherwise it is just liquid handcuffs is basically what it is. You're just handcuffed to the service, and this actually gave me the opportunity to grow. And that's the part of people's recovery that's important.
I think the best time of my peer, must have been his best day too, is when my son was with me. And the whole lot of us we were sitting at a cafe in Woolwich, and we were just cracking jokes, and just seeing Leo and my son laughing. I was in hysterics, nearly crying. And then when Leo was going, he just called me to say, Lawrence, it's been an absolutely brilliant day. I'm so pleased I met your son. He says, it's just really cheered me up today, you know. And I think I can't forget that, you know. It's just, I was bubbly all for nearly a month after. I just thought, this is brilliant.
My best memories is that Ambassadors, we went on really fun trips, and for Girls Club we do fun activities and we enjoy the activities, and we have like a jar and we put in different challenges that you want to talk about, and anonymous, so we just pick them out and read them, and we have like a talk about them in one big group.
Got a background in the creative arts, so we've done photography all during lockdown and during the pandemic. We did it in the outside gardens of Calthorpe Community Gardens, which is a really beautiful garden. I don't know if you know it, but it hosts charity, like it's been feeding a lot of the Afghani refugees recently, and we had an art event there.
It's mostly about learning new stuff, learning a lot, and meeting new people, obviously, and getting a bit more confidence in myself with dealing with other people in social circumstances and stuff like that.
When your client rings and, oh Bev, thank you, you did this and you did that, and I've spoken to, I've dealt with so many different organisations, and they say they can do this and they say they can do that, and nothing ever gets done, and yeah, just that, yeah, it makes me feel good, it's empowering.
8 years ago I was taking drugs and I didn't see a way out. It was at the lowest point I'd ever been in my life, and I'm really proud of this recovery, and I've learned so much about myself. I've developed so much.
I'm really proud of doing other things that I don't think I would have done if I've ever gone to FIA, so I feel like that's really added more joy into my life and more fun.
Having talked about my kind of journey and experience, I just like encourage anyone who is having any kind of issues and has maybe even been through some of the systems already that are available outside of peer support and peer networks, to give it a go, because it's definitely made a massive impact on my life.
Wow, thank you guys for all your positive comments about the film. It's really amazing to see so many voices coming together and talking about peer working and peer volunteering. Just to mention as well, it was a really co-produced film, and from the music to the editing to the producing, lived experience was part of that all the way through. So thank you to all the people that helped create the film, and to you guys as viewers. So we're going to move on now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the values of the Peer Involvement Network. So part of the work we wanted to do as a community was to work with peers in all the different roles to explore what values were important to them, and to bringing their core values into the work of the Peer Involvement Network, into PIN. So through workshops, we began to draw out some of these values. And we looked at which values were the strongest across all the different services and organisations, but from the peers within them. And through that process, we have created the Peer Involvement Network Values Charter. So a big element of how we see this charter is we see it as a journey. So the first step was, as I just said, was just identifying what values we share as a community, bringing them together, distilling them. And then the step two, we see it as exploring what they mean to us. And part of that is the process we've gone through today, which is working with our peers to dig deep and understand how they understand the values. Step three is really about embedding them within the mission statement and the work of the PIN. Values are useless if they aren't core to the work of an organisation or of a community. And the fourth step is about looking at how we can use our shared values and the PIN values to support peer work within services. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to hand over to our first peer, Leah, who's going to talk about one of our PIN values. So over to you, Leah.
Thank you, Joe. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. So I'm Leah and I am a peer worker within Talk for Health, and I co-chair some of the groups or the group spaces, and I also teach peer counselling skills or therapeutic skills within the Talk for Health community. I also attend the groups myself, and I've also been on the programme learning skills myself as well. So it's kind of a full cycle for me. So today, the value that I'm briefly going to discuss is authenticity and lived experience. And authenticity to me really means embracing and showing up as your true self. So not who we think we should be, but who we actually are. And most of the time, this is easier said than done. But when done, I feel that the benefits are so fulfilling. And then lived experience to me, especially as a peer worker, I would say, is a shared understanding of particular struggles, challenges, or adversities, because you too have been through something similar to the people that you've been working with, that you are working with. And so within Talk for Health and within my role, we really encourage ourselves and others to really take off that social mask and to be vulnerable. And I know that I've cried and I've shared a lot about my own social anxiety and struggles. I've listened to many other stories as well. And you're really able to be yourself and just share vulnerably about yourself. And through these stories, we share our lived experiences and we experience deeper connections and a deeper compassion through this as well. And this allows for a sense of safety, a heightened sense of safety, I would say, and also validation. And we're also able to show ourselves and others what you can really achieve as well. So that's it from me. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going to hand over to Jade.
Hiya, thanks Leah. I'm Jade and I am a new peer mentor, so I've just completed my training to become a peer mentor. And the value I'm going to speak about is compassionate support. So compassionate support for me is being supportive, just in a really kind and caring way, and absolutely no judgment, just no judgment at all. This, when I was a service user, so that's how I came to become a peer mentor. I came out of rehab and I was I got put into one of the groups through SHP, and I was very nervous and felt very alone. And in the group, it had two peer mentors. They took part in facilitating and being part of the group. And it was through talking to them and their, sharing their experiences, listening with them and chatting with them that I got to I felt a little bit less abnormal than I did before starting those groups. And yeah, it's values like this, the compassionate support, that kind of made me want to start the role of a peer mentor myself. So great, so I will pass over to Jason.
Well, thank you, Jade. Am I on? I can see myself, so I don't know what's happening.
You're on, Jason. Go for it.
I'm on. Okay.
You're on.
Thank you, Jade, and hello, everyone. My name is Jason Atman. I'm a peer mentor with SHP from August onwards, though I engaged with the Single Homeless Project for many years, on and off as a client. I've got lots of valuable help every step of the way, positive, for which I'm truly grateful. To be really honest with you, all this kind of social interaction was always exhausting to me and almost unthinkable a few months ago.
Jason, sorry to interrupt. Do you mind if you just pull the microphone from your headset towards your mouth so we can hear you a bit better?
Yeah, now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Now, after lived experience and compassion, the next core values of peer mentoring are clarity and honesty. Clarity, the state of being easy to see, hear, or understand, to be transparent in a way. There should be no confusion about the role of a peer mentor, which is to provide support, encouragement, and information. But ultimately,
someone who can support others with making positive changes in their lives. Honestly, the quality of being honest, free of deceit, truthful, and sincere. Only one caveat here. I believe we have to be mindful of different sensibilities. Clients and peers can still struggle with quite a lot of unprocessed and I know that anecdote to share with you about clarity and honesty, but it's crystal clear to me that my honesty about my darkest hours and everything else along the slow process, to my understanding that wasting away is not the way to go, was almost always appreciated by my peers and clients alike. So to wrap it up, clarity and honesty are absolutely essential to peer mentoring because without them, we cannot build and eventually reach the next value. So now I will pass it on to Andrew to talk to you about trust. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jason. I'm Andrew, and I'm going to talk about my experience of trust. So 3 years ago, I went to an introductory talk by Talk for Health, and my instant feeling was that I'm in the right place, that people knew what they were talking about, and there was a sense of competence. So for me, to establish trust, there has to be a consistency, a sense of compassion, and communication and competence. And if that's missing, it can sometimes reverberate or echo with experiences from the past. So I think personally, in my life, I try to be true to my word and follow through with my actions, and to learn how to communicate effectively with others. And just to remind myself that it takes time to build and establish trust, and to take time to make decisions and think before acting too quickly. What for me really destroys trust is the abuse of power. And that seems to have come up so quickly now in society, where we've got problems in politics with the police and everything else. I can give you some examples. Also, I found with Talk for Health, I asked myself, does it actually work? So in the 3 years, I just noticed the changes in people who turn up to the groups. So for me, it really does work. In the past, I've supported children from single parent families, and I've noticed there how important it is to build this trust. And also in my training as a complementary therapist, I found when I first arrived there, I trained in shiatsu, and the service users thought it was some sort of Japanese dog, perhaps. So it took time to build up. And after 3 years there, I was supposed to be there for 3 weeks. I was there for 3 years because it was so amazing. And people were literally fighting over the treatments, not because of me necessarily, but because I've had fantastic training and teaching. So that's me. Thank you very much. And I hand over now to Lawrence.
Hi, my name's Lawrence, and I work for SHP as a peer mentor, and I'd like to talk about collaboration. So I've worked with many people through SHP and Flick in co-production, resolving resolutions and problems, even delivering training. And that to me was eye-opening. To new staff, I thought when I was first asked, are you kidding? What could I do? And I found it eye-opening. It was unbelievable. Working with staff and their clients as well. And that was, again, one of the nicest things I've ever done. I felt valued, that my opinion counts. And one of the best things I ever did was commissioning for Camden Council. Whereas, I mean, imagine I was homeless and an alcoholic 9 years ago, and now I'm sitting in a room where I'm making decisions on how things are run and who gets contracts to run these hostels and things like that. Absolutely amazing, eye-opening. going through changes, watching SHP and make changes when they realised things were wrong. It's been an eye-opener, really. That's all I'd like to say. I'll pass back to Joe.
Thank you, Lawrence, and thank you, Andrew, Jason, Jade, and Leah. Our values only come alive through our peers. They're really the heart of the community and of the peer involvement network. So thank you all. So now we're going to take a bit of a deep dive into one of the services within Camden Islington that have a peer programme, and that service is Wiser. So sit back, and here's a short film of a conversation between two colleagues from Wiser. One of them is a peer.
So the Wiser project was created through a partnership of different specialist charities. We work with women whose experience of gender-based violence intersects with severe and multiple disadvantage. Wiser were quite similarly modeled after the Flick project in terms of, I think we saw a need for a women's specialist service within multiple disadvantage. So we are trying to reach individuals who have fallen through the gaps in service provision. We work very long term with short caseloads in order to connect with the individuals that we support. So I think the peer service was always part of the sort of overall idea for what Wiser should look like. I think that if you have a project where you're working with people who experience multiple disadvantage, it's really important to have lived experience coming through and to make sure that there is enough of a wraparound support that people feel like it's a cohesive support and that they have a team around them. I think because we started in 2020, that was the pilot year, there were some challenges in that, of course, it was an uncertain time for everyone. And I think we were trying to figure out how the peer mentor service could support over the phone, especially when some of the women that we support do not have, they don't have regular phones or they don't have access to a phone at all. So I think that was a big challenge initially. And I think it looks a lot different to how, Becca, you are now peer mentoring. I think some of those challenges sort of went away because of sort of where we are now, which is really helpful. But some of them are still there in terms of trying to reach out to people who are deeply entrenched in their experience. And so, yeah, it takes a while to try and reach out to them. Becca, at the moment, you're sort of the ideal person to speak with because you are kind of at the beginning of your peer mentor setting up of this relationship. So again, I guess I wanted to kind of ask you about what challenges you've sort of had in relation to setting up this relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I guess where the service users have had such a traumatic background, it can be hard for them to stick to routines and things like that or schedules. So I think I've only seen my service user on video call. Obviously, I haven't actually met her yet due to obviously so many things that are going on in her life. So that could be quite challenging because you really want to, put all your peer mentoring skills into action and obviously really help someone feel strong again from domestic abuse or whatever's going on. But obviously, yeah, they can't see you properly to do that. That can be obviously quite challenging. But at the same time, I know to be patient. It's just a case of just letting them know that, yeah, I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. When you're ready, I'm ready to help.
Yeah, I was thinking, I just think even, it's so powerful to be able to say, like, it's okay, but I'll be here next week. Like, I'll be here whenever you're ready. And I think that's something that so many services are not able to do for so many reasons. I think that must have a huge impact for a lot of our women. Being able to offer peer mentors to our service users is, for me, it's just integral to providing trauma-informed support. You can't really separate the peer mentor service from the rest of Wiser. I think it's all one support. And then in terms of, the service user, the impact on the service user, it's invaluable. And I think I have been surprised as the coordinator to how quickly, compared to the advocates, I've been surprised how quickly some of the peers have been able to build up that relationship. And I think it just is this sort of human connection that is so relatable. So, you know, women who feel like they're often not heard or not listened to, it's like they have this sort of automatic relation with someone, and they just feel at ease. Yeah, and I don't know if you'd like to speak to that, but
yeah, I mean, I wish that when I was going through my own personal lived experience, I wish I had a peer mentor that I could have gone to a cafe with and sat down and spoke about things, because it was just me in the park with my son in the buggy, just going around the park for like half the day, because obviously I didn't really have anybody there. I was quite alone. So I definitely personally would have loved that, to know there was somebody that I could have, obviously I would have taken my son with me, who I could have seen and spoke to and built up something that, I really, really, really would have loved that. So as a whole, I think it's so needed. And I don't think some companies realize how needed it is unless you actually speak to the women who are, you know, who may be in a refuge and they are so alone. I feel quite alone, and you need that communication. You need that kind of like break away from everything, where you can talk about your future with someone who is completely unbiased, someone who, you know, has experience in talking to you in that way. And it's a very special project, personally, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you. I think also, like, kind of touching on what you said, that, you know, there's a need for this within specialist services. Like, we are one of the only women's multiple disadvantage services, you know, in London, but then to be able to also offer this peer mentor experience, it seems very specialized and very, you know, I don't think people realize how much of a need there is for this type of support. So I think, yeah, I would love to see peer mentoring services in more in the VAWG sector, more in criminal justice, like, you know, any of these type of places where people feel sort of trapped within this like huge institution or within their experience. And yeah, what would you say, like, what has been helpful in supporting you? What would you like to see more of? And what should other services be doing in terms of setting up their own peer projects?
I guess in regarding to what I think has really worked, is the fact that we did get all that. We had clear instructions as to what would happen throughout the project. So we knew that we were going to have the training, and then that would lead into being given a service user and how that would work. So it's nice to know a clear vision of what is going to be happening as the project goes on. Obviously, because it can be quite a slow startup, or the service users might not be engaging straight away. But I know obviously WISE are doing this now to fill the time with other things that we could do whilst maybe the service user isn't ready to meet us, because that way then you're still motivated, you're still involved.
So I'm managing the peers, but I have complete trust in sort of you. My role isn't really.
So what I've most enjoyed about my peer work, I'll be honest, it actually was the training. I guess because I haven't really met my service user yet, I can't really comment too much on that. Apart from obviously it has been nice talking to her on the phone and getting to know her a little bit, but not enough to really give a full opinion on it yet. But I absolutely loved the training. It was just fantastic. I looked forward to it every week because it was just so well put, very understandable, very clear. And like I said, even being around the other peer mentors, we even built up a nice relationship in the training. We actually quite missed each other when the training finished because we saw each other every week. Really made me want to kind of get into it even more, whether it was peer mentoring or admin work. It's just the whole sector. It really made me excited to be involved in it.
So I guess what would you say to somebody who is thinking about peer mentoring? Like, is there any sort of specific advice you would have around expectations or what to think or what to do or what to ask for?
Yeah, I mean, be open-minded and non-judgmental, and to obviously have a lot of patience. And I guess, you know, trust the process. Just trust the process. You know, things might not go exactly the way that you planned, but if you just trust the process and, you know, find other ways, whether it's there could be sector roles. Once you're in with the team, there's so many opportunities that you can kind of go into. And I guess the main thing, because the actual peer mentoring is obviously helping another service user, is to don't get too caught up in what's happening to you or what's going on right now, and to just be present with them, and whatever they kind of want to go into conversation wise, as long as it's obviously like within a certain boundary, just feel comfortable to build that relationship and to build that trust. And I think that anyone that wants to go into peer mentoring, as long as you have that kind of personality, that patience, the understanding, there's so many opportunities that you can use those skills in, whether it's with a service user or in other areas. If you have that already in yourself, you can definitely branch that out.
Yeah,
I think peer mentoring is just so needed. I know many women who would have loved to have that, and I think so the more we have, the more we can offer, and it's just very important to our healing process and how we become confident again, and to grow our self-esteem. And sometimes, you know, you need a bit of help with that. You can't always do it by yourself. You can be strong enough to do it sometimes, but I know a lot of women that can't. And that's why I think it's very important. And anyone who wants to go into it, it's very, very rewarding in any aspects. And I think that's what makes it really nice.
Great. That was a really nice conversation to hear. It's really good to hear how peer work is developing in so many areas in health and social care. So thank you to Maud and Becky from Wiser. So we're going to jump into our panel now. So those of you in the panel, just pop your cameras on. So we've got Serdik, Peer Coaching Service Manager from C&I Choice and Control. We've got Lawrence, who we've heard from and was one of our stars in the film, who's a previous mentee with Flick and a trainee peer mentor with SHP. We've got Mike, who's the peer program manager at Talk for Health. We've got Neil, who's a senior peer coach with Camden Islington core team. Henrik, peer mentor at Flick, and Zori, a peer at Talk for Health. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to run through the questions. I believe there is the ability for those of you who are watching to vote up and down the questions, and I'm just going to start at the top, and we'll see what we get through, because there's a lot of good questions from you guys today. So our first question today is, if we set up a peer service, does it have to be accredited? Anyone know? Does it have to be accredited? Anyone want to jump in with that?
I can speak.
Go
if
for it,
that
Serdik.
helps.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't believe it has to be accredited. So I think sometimes you have some providers who have accredited training, but there's no sort of body of peer working that says this is a good enough program, not good enough program. So there can be real variability with the standard of peer working programs. And so one of the functions of the PIN is to try and make sure that we share good practice across the board as well. So whether that's training or whether that's supervision or whether that's just how the service gets delivered, I guess there's lots of opportunities to bring good practice. And so yeah, so I think there's no rules on it, but there's opportunities there to have good practice through being involved in working with others more directly.
Cool. Thank you very much, Serdik. So we've got another question here, which is about incentivizing volunteers. So perhaps some of you who have been volunteers might want to speak on this, but what's the best way to incentivize volunteers? What keeps you engaged in peer programs? Anyone up for that?
Yeah, I can answer that.
Go for it.
Right. I mean, what got me engaged, I think it's kind of an ongoing thing, because it's really, I mean, you can get incentivized with, I don't know, money, vouchers, all that kind of stuff, but it wasn't really that. I think it was just the learning aspect, which I think Lawrence has mentioned in the past, and not only learning, you know, about certain skills, but also learning about yourself and learning about other people and things like that. So I think for me, at least, the incentive was just that, really, and particularly learning about myself through my ongoing recovery, and then relating to other people who are maybe earlier stage in recovery and things like that. So yeah, it was just really that kind of thing. So on a very base level, I think that's what it was.
Lawrence, I see you. Oh, go for it, Mike.
I was just going to say, maybe I can add on to that slightly as well. So similar to what Henrik was saying, at Talk for Health, we offer our volunteers lots of opportunity for development. So yeah, training and learning, exactly as you were saying, Henrik. So we have a lot of advanced learning groups for our volunteers to join onto. So for example, we did one a while ago on kind of creating short films. And also, you know, there's various different steps to the Talk for Health training itself. So maybe the core program is kind of the main offering that we have, but we also give volunteers the opportunity to do our train the chair program, where they can learn to facilitate groups, and also the train the trainer program, where they can eventually learn how to deliver our core program itself. So it's kind of that progression and development which kind of keeps our volunteers engaged.
Right, very insightful. Thank you very much. I did mention actually voting up and down the questions, and I got slightly confused with that. If you click the question likes, we'll see which questions are coming out on top and which those of you in the audience want answering. So we've got a question with 5 likes here, which is a very interesting question for peers. How do you keep peers safe when they're working with challenges so similar to their own? So a question about perhaps being triggered when facing challenges they've faced and within the people they work with as well. Neil, you've got your hand up for that one.
Yes, hi. That's a very good question, and it comes up pretty often. There are certain not technical, but pre-scheduled supervisions to keep ourselves and our well-beings at check and to share. So for instance, in our team, every peer gets a clinical supervision with the nurse and then a reflective supervision with myself, and they have access to a group supervision. And also Trust has an employee advice and support line as well. We also try to encourage people to share in the team meetings with check-ins and check-outs. We try to be in constant communication. It also depends on the person's their own pace and well-being and their own methods, because some people might benefit from more active communication and some people want to have some privacy and maybe some time off. So we have really flexible schedules to work as much as we can. So that's the general framework of it. As a peer myself, if you ask me my experience, it really depends. It varies a lot. So when I first started, I was more struggling with my own emotions, not because I have seen something about something I experienced myself, but I was becoming aware of the wide range of lived experiences with the clients that I wasn't aware of. It might sometimes be overwhelming, but also at the same time, meeting new colleagues and clients gives you the wide range of shared values as well. So it's all of our personal journeys in a way, and what we find valuable and helpful to deal with the difficult times.
Could I add a little bit onto that as well? I think organizations also, through their kind of employment practice, have an opportunity to make sure people are well, and that it's about organizations also kind of welcoming discussions about well-being as part of the normal part of how things happen as well. So as a mental health trust, you know, more and more well-being is on the agenda as a really important thing. And I think peer workers have been a big part of making sure that's up front and central, and during COVID especially. So, you know, I think there's a real, you know, there's lots of conversations about well-being with peer workers, because actually they realize it's really important to be well in order to do the work. But I would say as well that actually the evidence shows actually it's also really good for you to be a peer worker. It can be really good for your well-being, and helping others and working according to your values is actually really energizing and inspiring as well, as long as there's good support and supervision in place for people.
So we have another question here, which is about the role of peers. So, do peers still have professional boundaries? How clear is it, and where is the line? How is it managed and kept safe for the peer and the client? So, does anyone want to speak on professional boundaries as a peer? Neil?
That's a very good question again, and it's an ongoing journey again. So we do have professional boundaries. We spend a lot of time talking about it actively, and we spend a lot of time in trainings as well. It is really important. So there are two types of boundaries. One is the boundary of the service, and also the boundaries you need for your own safety, psychological safety, and for the client's psychological safety. It is a friendly conversation within a professional boundary, and it depends on the clear understanding of what your role entails. Because as you heard in the brilliant presentation, there are a lot of different peer roles. Some peer roles will be more focusing on advocacy, some peer roles will be supporting you with more practical issues, and there's always emotional support. So professional boundaries is always constant communication and honest dialogue with the client. If you bring emotional honesty without any judgment and openness, that usually pays well in the relationship. It's boundaries always part of a joint work with the client. It is never one way. So it definitely needs constant attention, and sometimes maybe checking in occasionally while the sessions are ongoing. That's me.
Henrik, Lawrence, or Zori, did you want to add anything, maybe about what boundaries feel like as a peer, or what challenges you may have encountered? Henrik?
Yeah, I mean, as a peer mentor, I mean, obviously you've got the sort of boundaries, which are sort of the system set boundaries. But I think really for me, it's about being sort of yourself aware, you know, they're being self-aware of yourself rather, and your boundaries and your sort of personal boundaries, which sometimes you've got to kind of find out, and sometimes you along the way, often you do, and because everyone's different, and they all sort of different people react to you differently, you know, it's weird, but you have to be very aware of all of a sudden, oh, you know, I'm not feeling good, or this is too much for me, or whatever it might be, and be, I suppose, in control of that. And I think the awareness, you know, it's really, you know, it's brilliant. It's a good thing, but you know, you have to be aware of it as well. So yeah, and I mean, I think it's a fantastic thing. That awareness thing is brilliant, but yeah, you have to be aware of what's good and bad, sort of thing.
Henrik and Zori.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Zori, and I'm a volunteer at Talk for Health. What I wanted just to add to what Henrik said is, I think there is a very thin line between personal boundaries and professional boundaries. And what I found very, very useful for myself is that through my training at Talk for Health, I gained such a high level of self-awareness that helped me to maybe focus on my personal boundaries, which later on helped me to work easily with my professional boundaries. What I mean is that, yes, sometimes clients might have exactly the same experience as you have had, but you kind of step aside and you know whether to take action and what to do in that case. So yeah, it's managed by good training, I would say.
Thank you, Zoe. Very insightful. We've got another question here from Robert, and he wants to know, how can you become a peer mentor in Camden Islington? And so if anyone wants to jump in and maybe say a bit about how you became a peer mentor, or how we can become peer workers, peer volunteers in different organisations across the boroughs. Sorry.
So I can brief.
You just switched on to mute again, Zori. No worries.
Sorry. So I will just try to be very brief. So my journey with Talk for Health started at the beginning of 2020. At that time, I was volunteering for another charity, which was supporting individuals with physical health conditions, chronic physical health conditions, and I chose to volunteer for that, for those individuals, to help them because I have that condition myself. And at the time, my supervisor from that voluntary job I had, she strongly recommended to go for Talk for Health peer counseling program. She is actually involved in Talk for Health as well. To be honest, I was very skeptical. I am not very willing to share my personal experiences in front of unfamiliar people to me. It felt a little bit awkward at the beginning. However, at the end of the program, I felt so connected to everyone there. All of us were just trying to non-judgmentally listen to each other and provide help if we could, just understand each other, and that was invaluable. That was what I gained from Talk for Health initial training. It took me a while. It took me almost 2 years to understand how to use that, what I've learned, and now I know. I started masters in mental health, and I'm also doing a counseling course, and I'm continuing as a volunteer for Talk for Health, and I'm so grateful. If I was a little bit lost and alone 2 or 3 years ago, now I am absolutely sure that I'm on the right track, supporting individuals with mental health problems. Yes, that's my story. Thank you.
Amazing. What an inspiring story. I guess you can really see that peer work and peer volunteering can be a really significant step on that journey to working in health and social care. Thank you very much, Zora. Did anyone else want to speak on moving into peer work and volunteering, or how you might access these kind of opportunities?
I guess one of the things that the peer involvement network's also doing is sharing training opportunities as they come up as well. So if you join the PIN as a peer worker or prospective peer worker, it's also an opportunity to just hear about the different trainings that happen. So I can see the Recovery College has got some courses going on. We've got Talk for Health has regular trainings going on. I think Lucy's just put something in the question and answer around voiceability in their training. So there's lots going on locally, and I think it's about just reaching out to the PIN as a kind of central place where you can get some information. Camden Islington Foundation Trust, we're also going to be hiring people in substantive posts. So if you've already got experience in peer working, there's opportunities to join our trust to get further experience and perhaps even part or full-time roles as well. So I think it's about just figuring out where you're at. So the Recovery College courses might be a great way to just get a sense of where am I at now and what's the best way for me to link up with what's out there.
Great. I think we might move on now, but thank you all for being such willing participants and sharing your insights into peer work and volunteering, and some great questions from you guys as well. So thank you to everyone who was part of the Q&A panel and who offered the questions as well. I'm going to say a little bit about what else is going on with PIN and what you might expect from the community going forward, because we have a lot of things at the moment going on. It's a bit like plate spinning. We're trying to keep all the plates spinning, and there's a lot happening. So I'll kind of talk you through a bit about that. So one of the things we're doing is a PIN peer-to-peer research. So one of the aims of the PIN initially was to get a really good understanding of what is going on in the community of peer working and volunteering. What does each service's peer program look like, and what are the experiences of peers? We're also really interested in how people with experience enter the world of peer working, and also what their next steps from peer working look like, because we know that some organizations offer, you know, really great development opportunities for peers to become senior peers and peer trainers and all of that kind of opportunities, and then some organizations offer different development opportunities where you might not necessarily be working from a place of lived experience. We really wanted to understand from our peers' perspective their experiences. So we are about to jump in to do the fieldwork part of that research. So you may hear about different hubs in and around Camden and Islington, where if you are a peer, or if you previously were a peer, you can come and fill out a questionnaire with a peer, so it's peer-to-peer, and take that time to tell us about your experiences and have your input into the PIN research project. We also continue with PIN meetings every month. So like I said, we have our inspiration group and our action group, and they really work together to kind of evolve what's going on in the community. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out and become part of the PIN meetings as well. We also have a good practice guide in development. So I'll say a little bit about that. We were interested in looking at how differently we're working as organizations within PIN, and wanted to pull all the good practice together and have it in one place. So what we've done is we've been holding workshops over the last year, and talking to peers about what good practice means to them. Where do they feel comfortable? Where do they feel supported? What is good training? And where perhaps are the gaps in all of them areas? And so the good practice guide is really the voice of peer workers and volunteers, talking to the community, to coordinators, to service managers, to commissioners, to say this is what makes sense to us, and this is what good practice is to us in our eyes. So the good practice guide will be out soon. And the research and the good practice guide will be launched at our in-person event that is happening 29th of March. So if you enjoyed today's event, please come along to our in-person event, which will be held 29th of March, and it's at the Pirate Cafe in Camden. So some of you may know that venue, really cool, really quirky venue, right on the canal, with views of the canal as well. And that event is going to be, it's going to be a peer fair. So anyone with lived experiences can come along and talk to all the different people, all the different services that will have stalls there, and will be having the opportunity to talk in depth with people in services and looking at opportunities to becoming a peer worker or volunteer. We also really want to celebrate our peers, and we're going to use this event to do so. So there's going to be like an award ceremony, just really celebrating the good work of our peers and of our services in the boroughs. There's also, we really want to make it really fun and enjoyable. There'll be food, but we also want to offer workshops. So it will be like peer-led workshops where we're really, like, again, highlighting the individual skills and how wonderful and different all our peers are. So we're asking our peers to come forward and maybe present one of their skills, and whether that be mindfulness or yoga, or holding like a space for conversation pieces and interacting a bit more with people who are peers in peer programs in Camden and Islington. So I believe we're going to pop the link in, or we have done, pop the link in to our Eventbrite, so you can look at that, hold the date. You don't necessarily need to sign up for the Eventbrite, but it's nice to have a reminder to know when the event is happening and that it's still going ahead, which it definitely will be. Another thing to mention, yeah, just to go off the back of what Serdik was saying, part of what we did with the PIN as well is create some trainings at the Recovery College. So we were really keen to really build a bridge and a pathway into to being a peer worker or peer volunteer. So we have created 2 courses. One is an introduction to peer working called What is Peer Working? And that's a 1-day course for anyone with lived experiences that wants to just kind of dip their toe in and have a little think about what peer working is, what opportunities are out there maybe, and start to kind of look within and kind of draw out and identify some of their skills that might be useful in peer working and volunteering. So if anyone is interested in that, we'll be running that course again in the summer term through Recovery College. The second course we've developed is called Steps into Peer Working, and that's a 3-day course. And that's a much bigger, deeper dive into the skills around peer working, looking at developing as a person, looking at how you build positive relationships with clients, with service users, and with the team and colleagues. And then also kind of just introducing some of the core elements about what you will encounter in health and social care and being a peer. So we're really excited about that course, and that, I believe, begins early mid-March, and we still have places open for that. So if anyone's interested in that course, or please send it out to people. There should be a link in the chat as well about the Recovery College training. So I believe, what else have we got here? Oh, next steps. Thank you. Just take a moment, everyone, and we would like you to just have a little think and a little moment to reflect about something you're going to take away from today's webinar. and pop it into the chat. So if there's something you really want to share with us today about something that stood out for you, a story of one of the peers, or an insight into the way that we do peer working, or if you've made a decision and said, actually, I want to become a peer worker or volunteer, or you come from a service that doesn't have peer working or volunteering, and you're like, actually, I want to take this learning back, and I want to reflect this back to my team and look for a way where we can bring peer working into our service, then just take a little moment now and have a moment to reflect on the hour and a half we've spent together, and just pop a comment into the chat to let us know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and anything you want to reflect back to us in this moment. So I'll give you a couple moments there just to have a little bit of a reflect as we come to the end of our time together today. And anything you want to reflect back to us, just pop into the chat and we can have a look at that. Okay. So before we hear from our peer poet, we just want to say that we hope today's event has been really useful to learn more about what being a peer is like in Camden Islington, and what peer work and volunteering can offer to service users and to clients, regardless of the sector. So we are going to send out an email to all of the attendees, just that will cover anything that we popped into the chat, and obviously give you contacts to reach out back to us if you had any further questions, or if you wanted to be involved in the PIN network. So that really brings us to the end. What I'm going to do now is hand over to Henrik, and he's going to offer us a piece of poetry. So over to you, Henrik.
Right. Thank you, Joe. Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Henrik, and I'm a peer mentor with Flick. And so I'm reading my poem because I can't actually remember it all the time. I wrote this poem actually to try and capture how I have experienced, or my experiences and my feelings about being a peer mentor. So I will read it to you now. It's called Thank You. Let me tell you this story, this journey that I've started. It ain't for the faint-hearted. The beautiful people I meet don't always know where they sleep, and of other troubles to speak. The struggles of their day, unseen by most. I help, I'm their friend. I do what others don't. But I want to say thank you, though, for letting me in, for trusting my help. I can't say it's all easy, but worth it is. From the sadness to smiles, for the stories for miles, for the help in finding myself. Thank you, my friends. Thank you from my heart. It's a privilege. Great memories, great friendships, common hardships we share. What else is there? Call me your friend because I care. Thank you very much.
Very much, Henrik. And that brings us to the close of our event today. So thank you all for everyone that attended, and thank you to everyone that participated. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you as part of the PIN community and at our future events as well. So look out for us.